was like, yes, holding it down for suburban areas everywhere.
That is 100% going to be a Halloween costume this year.
Shorty wanna kick it with a plan. Shorty wanna kick it over here, not there. Naughty when she's stripping off her land.
On this episode of Athletes Anonymous, it is another early morning. We are going to be predicting the games for NFL Sunday, talking about a little bit of NFL Thursday night football, and moving it over into the NBA, also World Cup stuff, right? Anyway, let's get to that intro music. Welcome back to the podcast. I am your co-host, Keone McKeague, and with me, as always, are my longtime friends and co-hosts, Nolan Chang, Jared Shirai, and Jalen Holston. Say what's up to the pod, boys.
Glad to serve you on this glorious Sunday.
God damn.
I really wanted to cut the music out early just to have you guys dancing to nothing.
I was
Anyway,
wondering, me and Jalen were popping off in our
Crumping
cameras.
hard for the streets.
To the streets.
crumping. Do people still do that now? Yeah, I guess so, right? People still
Yeah.
crump. Anyway.
Why not?
Kind of, you know.
Yeah. I
Little
was
bit.
like making
You ever
just
seen
aging
the
ourselves a little
crackheads under
bit.
the highway? They crumping all the time.
All right. But yeah, we're gonna move
Alrighty.
it straight into some news with Jared Shirai, our resident soccer guy. So we're gonna move it over to the World Cup. What did you get to see from the entire time that they were playing? Then obviously the elimination game. So just give us it all, because to be honest, I watched maybe one highlight. Yeah.
You watched one highlight?
Yeah.
I actually watched the elimination game yesterday because we flew out early. So, but I would say it was actually, I think honestly, a lot of people are like just talking about it, whatever, but I think it's a successful World Cup for the USA, being that I think if I was watching and then they said it right, they're the second youngest team in the World Cup. So the fact that they make it to a round of 16, when I think there's some people who were saying like, they weren't even sure if they were going to make it out. You know, they tied England. They got that 1-0 win. And, of course, they lost the third game. And they played Netherlands, who's a very matured roster, who's been there before. And when you watch the ending of everything, if you watch that elimination game, I would say they were in it all the way up until that third goal. But the little mistakes that they made, definitely the youth showed. And that's why... I mean, the result was 3-1, but overall, I would say it was a good World Cup for them. World Cup has been, I don't know, it's weird because it used to be such a big thing, and now I feel like it's died down so much where people don't watch any of it at all. And I mean, this year it's hard. It's in Qatar, and you got to watch early morning games to be able to watch it. So I'm kind of glad that like the USA game yesterday wasn't as early. I think it was like 7:00 or something. Like I think it started at
early.
7. So at least it was viewable, I guess you would say. But I mean, going forward, the next World Cup, is going to be held here in, I think, Canada. Like I think it's a joint host. So they're talking about a lot of good things, because since this is a young team, so hopefully they learned. You could tell they learned a lot as far as it goes as a team aspect, and to see what the young ones are going to either help the team, or if this is going to be the core for the next 4 years. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I know the
I
World
thought
Cup's
it was
every 4
a World
years,
Cup.
but is it always around
Mhm.
this time?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
Gotcha. I just found out that it's every 4 years. I was just like,
They have
is this a annual thing, or how does this work?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's every
It's
4 years.
offset with the Olympics, though.
Yeah.
Sure, right.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay. So is
So
it
you
like
get 2 years
every
of this, 2 years of
Raja?
So
Just about
doesn't
that.
that
Okay.
mean the Winter Olympics?
Olympics is the same, yeah, because it's every
Yes.
2 years off from the
So
regular Olympics.
shouldn't there be something?
Well, maybe it's because of the whole 2020 thing. Things got thrown off.
So it's
That's why, like the
2023 now?
2020 Olympics were like 2021, and so on and so forth. I don't know. Anyway,
If you guys know, let us know.
moving over to you, Jade. I mean, you did give a little fist pump for the U.S. Did you get to catch some of the action? And It's just like, go play by play. No,
No.
The ball flew down the
Yeah,
field.
I got to see a pretty good amount of it, especially the first game, because our high school actually was had the game on all of our TVs all day. So we were kind of like walking the hall and kind of catch where they were at for that first game. And then we saw we won. We're like, holy shit, we didn't blow it, guys. Like, I can't believe we didn't get just fucking like 4-0'd out of the first round like we do every year. I didn't get to see the other two games. But again, I was shocked we won the first one. That's all I'm going to say. I was like, this is crazy. I knew about the young roster, so I was like, surely we're going to get dumpstered by everybody. But yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. So progress moving forward. Obviously, our women's team will hold it down as they always do, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
good stuff. Nolan, over to you. Finish it up. Anything interesting you caught? Anything that, because your head's looking like you didn't even watch any.
Japan, Ichiban. Go Japan, now that America's out. No? Okay.
Japan and Korea.
And are they playing? They're playing against each other?
No, that's the surprise teams that made it out though.
Yeah.
Japan
Because,
and South Korea. Japan
That's
plays Croatia,
really the only thing I
and Brazil
kept note of.
plays. Yeah, they play tomorrow.
Okay, for sure.
Right on.
Yeah, I wasn't really able to watch much. Just highlights here and there. Whatever sports posts popped up about it. Whatever that kid name is, Pulisic, that made the Super
Christian
Bowl
Pulisic.
for us, for the USA, and
Card carrying.
sacrificed his
That
body.
boy played nuts.
Good for him. He did a service for this country.
I'm so happy for
We'll
him.
see him next 4 years.
I don't know if you guys heard about that kid. So Cristiano Ronaldo is like probably leaving Man United. They're talking about him coming in to kind of like take his place on that team.
Oh,
Like he was with Chelsea for a long time, and he's like one of the bigger US names. So the fact that he did what he did, like just kind of he lived up to his name in
The
that
club
aspect.
thing is so confusing to me. Like, it's that maybe that'll be a whole nother pod on its own. Like,
we'll just
trying
let
to figure
Jared
out.
explain everything.
I feel like it's so confusing how they can just kind of come and go and just random spurts, like just random moments of time. I'm not even sure how the contracts and all that stuff work for them. But anyway, that'll do it for the World Cup stuff. We're going to move on into some American football.
The real football. I'm just kidding. No, I'm
but
just kidding.
Wow.
It is not even real football. You kick it once every 3 plays.
I'm going to throw it over to you first, Jay. Going to talk a little bit about Thursday night football, since we did get to see the Bills take on the Patriots. And I know he's your favorite quarterback in the league, Josh Allen.
He's the best quarterback in the league, right?
He's the best quarterback in the league, according to Jalen from the last few pods. But we're going to talk about the Bills and the Patriots. Obviously, the Bills took it 24-10 on Thursday. What did you get to see, and what did you see from the game as if you got to catch it?
I did not watch the game out of principle, just to save my fucking retinas. But upon hearing the Bills won, I was not surprised, because what we have seen from the Patriots is this. And this is going to be a scorching hot take for a lot of NFL fans and media people around the world. Bill Belichick is not the greatest coach of all time. He rode the coattails of Tom Brady, and I am sticking to it. And the reason being is because without Tom Brady and those 7 rings, what has Bill Belichick accomplished? Absolutely nothing. Everything that has happened with the Patriots so far, he's the GM, he's the evaluator, he's the head coach, he's supposed to be this great developer of talent. In the last 3 seasons since Tom Brady left, he's developed nothing. I think Mac Jones has actually gotten worse because he can't name an offensive coordinator, which is like the only thing you have to do as a head coach is name people to positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here saying, yes, the rings, I think, are going to get a lot of people in that argument being like, well, he's got 7 rings. How is he not the greatest coach of all time? Like, come on. The fact that Tom, the next season he leaves, wins a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay pretty much nullifies that entire argument for me. And I know it's going to sound a little biased here, but if anything, how bad he's done with the Patriots since then puts Andy Reid further ahead of him for greatest coach of all time, because he's done it with multiple organizations at every level and multiple players at every level. Does anyone know, or did anyone know who Donovan McNabb was before he came to Philly as a head coach? Gonna go with a solid no on that one. Would any other head coach been able to revitalize Michael Vick, who was basically blackballed from the league for dogfighting in Philadelphia. Gonna go with a hard no on that one. Alex Smith, career average Joe, all of a sudden is a playoff contending quarterback in Kansas City. I'm just saying that to me is a real head coach, greatest of all time. Does he have the rings to back it up? No, only got the one with Patty Mahomes. We'll see how many he ends up with after Pat and him are done and whatever. But yeah, that's really what I took away. I was just like, wow, like this is a shamble of what the Patriots used to be. So there you go.
That was a beautiful explanation, Jay. That was a beautiful ride through history right there.
Yeah.
Andy Reid that's well done. Well done. I'm just going to shift it over because we don't even need to continue talking about this conversation. Oh,
just a little question in just given because I did enjoy Jalen's kind of explanation about regarding Andy Reid as a coach through different organizations, showing success, even though if it isn't necessarily winning a ring multiple times, he still got the one with Mahomes, like he said. Does that mean we should look into appreciating coaches more, regardless if they haven't won time in and time out each season? Because, just in regards to the NBA, and I believe you guys can agree, like, there's multiple coaches who successful, gets very winning teams into the playoffs, but maybe only has one ring under their belt or none, but still just can't get right to the top. And people give them a lot of, give them a lot of shit because, like, oh, you guys are choking in the end. You're not a good coach. He's not the one that gets it done. In comparison, obviously Andy Reid does get at least one ring, which, kind of adds to his accolades for that. But does it mean that we need a coach to have one ring so that we can give them that more praise and grace as opposed to saying you can't get it done in the playoffs? Like, sure, you can get the regular season going, you can get in there, but does it mean that you are not the coach that we would envision for our team? You know what I mean?
I think so. Because, I'm going to use the Chiefs as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Marty Schottenheimer, statistically, he is one of the greatest coaches to come to Kansas City. You ask any Chiefs fan about Marty Schottenheimer, they want that man hung in the streets for how terrible he was year after year after year. Yeah, just like execution style in the street for how many playoff victories that he blew, because we'd get like
coming
a
to a Christmas bundle near you. An execution
lead.
Style Jalen shirt.
That's EP's coming out, soon too in January. Let's look out. It's gonna be a lot of bars dropping in there.
Just chopping it up.
Diss tracks for Josh Allen. Just wait. But
Aaron Rodgers.
And Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, you're goddamn right. I'm not gonna leave him off my list.
And Derek Carr.
Oh yeah.
That's for Nolan, though.
Derek Carr is so sad. I don't even have to put effort into telling you how bad Derek Carr is. You could just be
just ask the Raiders.
Look at that guy.
Ask all the Raiders fans. I'm not even a Raider fan.
Oh man. But yeah, if you ask a Chiefs fan about Marty Schottenheimer, execution style in the streets, because when it came time in the playoffs, he choked so many big games with a fantastic roster.
So let me ask now, as a kind of like a subsequent question regarding the same topic. So is Doc Rivers a good coach then? Doc Rivers, but he has a ring now.
I'm gonna say this, and I was gonna throw my 2 cents in when you asked the question, because my favorite coach of all time was Chuck Daly, and really his biggest successes were with the Pistons, right, at the time. Jared obviously was in agreement with me. But the reason why we thought he was a great coach was because of the team that he had, that he led to success. And the fact that he was able to not only handle a team basically full of role players. If you really look at the grand scheme of who was on that team, role players, essentially. He had one big star on their team, which was Isaiah Thomas, and everybody else, in the history of players, is probably maybe not even top 25 in their positions for a lot of them. And then when you talk about how he was able to handle the egos of the players from the Dream Team, really, that ability to kind of do it in both regards, handling the ego of star players, and also developing guys and finding guys who can play the game the right way and play their role to perfection, is the reason why we put that guy so high up on our list. So, for me personally, I think Doc Rivers was given a lot of shots to kind of do his thing, and he just never really quite got there. He had the Clippers, who at the time were one of the hottest names in the NBA, and they realistically was like one of the few times we actually saw 3 stars, but they didn't even make it to the finals. Like, I think there were a lot of times during that tenure that you really looked at him and you were like, you have this sort of, you know, very close to the basket type of team. You have the guy who can distribute to them, and he just constantly made the wrong calls as far as like who should they bring in to kind of work around those players, what they should do schematically whenever they played teams. It just felt like a lot of times it fell to like poor decision making. And Chris Paul, JJ Redick, they've all talked on it. JJ Redick a lot of times on his podcast. He praises Doc Rivers for being able to handle the amount of drama that happened within the team, especially near the tail end of that tenure. But he also has said on that pod that he didn't feel like Doc was making the correct decisions when it came to like how they utilized him in screen and roll actions, how they utilized DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. Obviously, we saw later on Blake Griffin was able to develop a shot, but even then, Doc Rivers didn't really use that so much during his time. And it was like almost like he was frozen in time, is what I think JJ kind of quoted, saying like he was stuck in this way of like having 2 bigs and having to run your game strictly through just pick and pop, but more pick and roll type of gameplay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that's fair. Jared, any thoughts before we get?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think Keone kind of took the point that I was going to pick, because like, we talked about we talk about all the coaches, and then if we have to go back to a coach, it's always going to be Chuck Daly. As far as for Doc Rivers, like I think it's kind of like Jalen kind of had put for the Bill Belichick situation when Doc went to Boston. He kind of was handed a good team already. Just got able to manage. Like he's like we said, he's good at managing people. He was not handed that ring, but handed a team that was already there. Like Boston was already pretty dominant by that time, and maybe it was something that he said that got them over the hump. But all those years with the Clippers, I went to a bunch of those games. I watched them like when they were healthy. I watched them when they were injured, and he had the pieces. He had the pieces to get them there. Even though it is, like we said, a tough Western Conference, I still feel like when you have players the way it is, and when you do get quote unquote stuck in time, it makes it hard for things. It's like for us being volleyball coaches. I'm not going to teach the way that I'm not going to consistently teach the way that I was taught, because I'm one generation, 2 generations younger than you guys, and like when you think about it in that aspect, we're going to bring
3 or 4 generations.
Hey, wow.
Oh, Nolan, stop muting yourself.
Maybe.
You're making the joke.
Sorry, my cat was purring really loud. I was like, just one generation, Jared. It's okay. You don't. It's the holiday season. I'll be nice. Okay.
3, 4, 5 generations.
So nice. I was like, I went on the high side, because I knew you guys were going to throw in extra numbers. So I was like, you know what? I'll just try and beat them to it. But
it's like because you were 70.
It's kind of like in that
72.
Oh my gosh! No, it's kind of like that for me, at least. Like, especially when you look at how the game develops, either you jump on board and you adapt to it, and you adjust your coaching style to play into it, or you teach the very old way. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's never going to get you over that hump, because everybody's adapting to new, bigger, better things. If you're teaching somebody to drive the lane and they don't have a Euro step, I'm 90% sure that you're not always going to be very successful getting to the basket, just because you have to add that little wrinkle in. And when you add wrinkles, it makes for better players, it makes for better generations, it makes you a better coach. I learn everything from my kids even now, and I'm old. I walk into a gym and I tell them straight up from the beginning, I'm going to learn from you just like you're going to learn from me. So it's going to be a 2-way street. Every day you walk in the gym, you want to adapt. And I feel like, you look at what he's doing in Philadelphia, I feel like he's still not adapting. And that's why we thought they're going to be a great team. We thought they were the team to beat. And look what they did in the first, 2 weeks of the season. We're past that. But the first 2 weeks of the season, you look at their record and we're just like, wow, we made a really bad guess there. So, in the defense of Doc Rivers, I think he was a great player.
You guys
he's
made
a great
really
mind,
bad guess.
but
I didn't make the same guess.
I don't think he should get the credit in the sense of being a great coach.
Yeah.
So
I feel like so. Yeah, I mean that's some really good points. I do appreciate that, kind of bringing it back. Coaches learn from their players, and players learn from their coaches, both in a two-way street. So fair enough.
Well done. All right, we're gonna move on into these NFL game day predictions. Most of the games here are sitting at halftime. The ones from the early morning, obviously, like I said, most days we're recording this just kind of in the middle of the first, the 8 o'clock for me games. So we're going to talk about the first one, which is the Packers and the Bears. Obviously, Bears leading 16-10. Justin Fields is back in the lineup. Just going to go real quick through these games, get your predictions. Jared, who do you think is going to take this game?
I thought you were going to start with Jalen because we're starting with Aaron Rodgers.
Saving me for last.
Fields is back, and like we are playing the Packers. We already went on that rant. I'm going to take the Bears. Short and sweet.
Well done. Swinging it over to you, Nolan. Bears and Packers, who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Bears, only because sorry, my cat. Only because Fields is back in the game, and I think he has a better connection now in this later half of the season with his offense. Aaron Rodgers, I know Jalen's going to have the most to say about it, but he's not really clicking too well, and he's doing everything but blame himself.
Is he playing again?
Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it's not Jordan Love. Just curious. Okay,
I
all right.
don't think they made the announcement to start him or not, but
Gotcha.
I think it was like a discussion.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm going Bears. Bears.
All right, swinging it over to you, Mr. Jalen Holston. The floor is yours.
Oh, it's going to
Bears
be
and
the
Packers.
Bears, Keone. It's going to be the Bears. It's not even a question, Keone. Because this man, Aaron Rodgers, is so full of himself, thinking he's high and mighty and that he's going to save this season with the way that he's been playing ball. Are you out of your mind, bro? The fact that Jordan Love is not playing this game, it frustrates me to no end, because for some reason, the Packers think, because of what Aaron Rodgers did his first couple years as a starter and did all these crazy things, was an MVP, that he now gets to control how the organization goes. Like, he's a guy. Like, at the end of the day, he's a guy. He's tainted your organization with his whole immunization BS he pulled with the COVID stuff. And now you're saying you have Jordan Love, who you traded up to get in the draft, and you haven't really seen much tape on him. What other time are you going to get before his contract extension is due next year to look at him and be like, should we keep this guy? You're not going to get very many chances. You're not winning the NFC. You're not going to the NFC Championship. You're not doing anything. Like, cut Aaron Rodgers, cut the bait, let him go fly away like he was supposed to Denver, and then, go see about Jordan Love. Okay? Other than that, Justin Fields, lock it down, baby. Get rid of that Aaron Rodgers curse. I'm sick and tired of seeing him be like, I own the Bears. I own the Bears. You don't own shit. You don't know nothing. Let's go. Chicago, baby. Let's get it.
Chicago's about to have a parade.
Yeah, no, that was the first game. And before I get into this next one, we're going to start this segment off by a sincere apology from the rest of my cohorts for believing that a Jeff Saturday and Matt Ryan, way past his prime, Matt Ryan, was enough to take on my Steelers on Monday Night Football. How ridiculous was that? And with that, I'll say this poetic piece of anecdotal note. Suck it, haters. All of you, suck it.
This just in, the Steelers have cut the games back from the playoff race to 7.
And also, if anybody on this pod is a Los Angeles Rams fan, we have a better record than you. Boom, roast it.
Boom.
Listen,
Getting
Los
wrecked, Mike.
Angeles
Suck
doesn't
it.
give a shit.
Now they don't. 'Cause they're
LAFC won
losing.
the real football.
Suck it, all of you.
Imagine being in LA and having literally nothing. I mean, the baseball's over.
Oh, calm
Hey,
down.
Lakers are
Jalen.
trash.
Calm down. In college, you were in shambles because the Kansas City Chiefs did not get a win. So you chill the fuck out. You're sitting here in your high horse. Your Bulls ain't doing too hot either. The Lakers have a better record. Win percentage, technically.
We know the Bulls are going to be average to below average.
Oh, now you
Okay,
think
since
they're...
Mike All right. Our GM thought the idea was to build a team around Zach LaVine, who at the end
Our
of the day
GM
is just
thought, let's just trade away all the picks for LeBron, and look where we are now.
Isn't
Coming
that
back
the worst
hot.
idea? He's like the best player in NBA history right now. It's a terrible idea. Like, that's a great idea. Yeah.
He's
probably.
37!
LA.
He's 37!
That's exactly
He
what
won
he's
your
doing.
ring, so
I know.
I was like,
Hey,
anyway.
Jalen's got a point.
Anyway, so bringing it back to the NFL, the game is 16-6. The Steelers are up on the Falcons. It is the beginning of the third quarter. Jared, swinging to you first. Who do you got winning this game, Steelers versus Falcons?
Taking England, they're up 1-0. Oh wait, wrong soccer. My bad.
Wrong soccer.
Steelers.
There's only one
They're
soccer.
Oh, so now you admit it's called soccer.
Soccer.
Wrong.
I will say the Steelers are going to win this game. The Falcons, I feel
Thank
like I don't
you.
know. Like I'm honestly going to be honest. Like
Actually, I'd rather you
kinda
guys
following
all just say they're going to lose, because every time you guys say they're going to lose, they win.
Oh, they're going to win then.
well, I've been watching the Falcons because I have Drake London, and like I want to make sure see what they do. But I feel like
Yeah.
the Falcons don't get it done. Like this, it's just no better way to put it. They just don't get it done, and it's frustrating.
Sorry. Breaking news, little bit. Lamar Jackson
Right.
out for the rest of the game. Hopefully, it's not serious. That would be bad.
Jesus.
I mean, I am playing against.
I mean,
Lamar
they're
Jackson
playing
this
Russell
week,
Wilson, so it's okay.
Come
They're-
on,
I
Nolan.
hope
This
it's
is
not
a
a bad
man's.
injury.
This is a
hope
man's life we're talking about.
Oh, wait, was it really that bad?
Nah, I don't know. It just says that he's out.
Why
for
do you
the
make me
season.
feel bad about
Who knows? Maybe it's a torn ACL. I don't know. I'm not even paying attention to the game. I'm trying to be in this and not continue watching the game too much. So, anyway, swing it over to you, Nolan. Steelers and Falcons. Who do you got?
Well, there's no way the Steelers can blow a 16-6 lead, right? So I'm going with the Steelers.
Swinging it over to you, Jay. Steelers, Falcons. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go ahead and pick the Steelers.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do like Kenny Pickett. I really do. I
Thank
think there's
you.
a future there. I trust in Mike Tomlin. Again, never had a season below 500. Right? Like this is a couple games here. They could get it done and try to really make sure he gets back to that mark. Now, if he does that, he's also in that discussion of one of the greatest coaches of all time. Personally, even if you remove the era of Ben Roethlisberger, post then they've still been fairly competitive. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Swinging it over to the Jets and the Vikings. We got the Vikings up 20-6 at halftime. Going over to you first, Jared. Keep it short and simple. Vikings, Jets. Who do you got?
Vikings. They're just like you guys said last week. If you're playing the Vikings, bro, don't pick that defense that they're playing
really
against
though,
because they're just really good. To keep it out of it, sorry. Lamar went out with a knee injury. It says.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I don't know what it doesn't elaborate, but it just says knee injury. But so I wanted to let you guys know that since I was looking at what it
Also,
was.
the reason why when I saw there was a notification saying that Justin Fields got a 56-yard touchdown on a rush. I was just like, man, he really got to stop. You know,
That's what I'm saying, bro.
you really got to stop. You got to start throwing the ball some more. We can't have you running for 200 yards a game because you
Wants
will
to be
eventually.
Michael Vick, man.
Anyway,
Catches up to you.
yeah, gonna swing it over to you, Nolan. Who do you got? Jets, Vikings.
I'm going Vikings.
Vikings. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, we know.
We already know you
why.
got Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson.
I didn't even
We know
start
why.
Kirk this week, okay? Calm down.
Oh, you did?
I started Dak.
Stop doing it. I swear, if he scores more again this week.
I'm holding, fingers crossed right now.
Did you have Dak last week or did
Huh?
you have? Who did you have last week?
I had Dak
He had
last
Dak.
week.
He had Dak
Kirk
last week.
barely
So you did go
outscored
back to
him.
back.
Did you flip a coin this time, or did you just
Yeah.
pick one?
The only reason I kind of kept it because I feel like Sauce was going to cover JJ pretty well, and thus far he's been holding him pretty well. So I was like, might as well just play it safe. Their score averaging each week is pretty much very similar between Dak and Kirk. I'm just hoping that I made the right choice this week against Keone's dad. So
We
you
will
know
find
how it
out.
rolls.
We
Let's
will
go,
find
Dad.
out.
Let's go, Dad. I need
Let's go,
some of
Dallas.
I need some of these guys out of the playoff picture. Moving over to you, Jalen. Jets, Vikings. Who do you got?
They benched Zach Wilson, right?
Yes, it is
Yeah.
Mike White.
Yes.
Officially for the rest of the season.
Right. I don't know. I kind of don't know. Feel like if it's Zach Wilson, I would have definitely picked the Vikings, but my homie could throw the ball, dog. Like the
Yes,
Jets
he
look like
can.
a different
Oh,
team
hell
when
yeah.
it's not Zach Wilson.
I have Garrett
Or
Wilson.
sling it.
Jets.
He went off
I'm
last
gonna go with
week.
the Jets. I think there's that new QB love going on. I'm gonna go with the Jets.
And that D is pretty solid.
It's a talented team over there.
It's Christmas. Cut it out. Just like, swinging it over, we got the Lions and the Jags. Wow, the Lions are up 23-6 on the Jags. It's in the third quarter. Jared, who do you got?
Man, I think this might be the first week I'm not
You're
taking
going
Trevor
against
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. Ooh, I was just about to say the
It's
first
hard
time.
because like I was kind of following the game because I saw the score that you saw I think they just scored again, but I was right before their last score. I was kind of looking at it and I was like, they're not getting any like really field production. Detroit's just moving the ball, and like if they're not scoring a touchdown, which I think they only have two, they're kicking field goals. So I mean, like they're producing on that end. So if it continues, and I feel like if Jacksonville's defense hasn't figured it out yet, they're kind of having their way getting down the field. So I'm gonna have to take Detroit.
Great points. Swing it over to you, Nolan. Who do you got?
You know, because the score is this way, I'm going to go safely with the Lions, but I wouldn't put it past, Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Etienne to kind of get something going in these last quarter and a half. But it's just going to be dependent. Like Jared said, if he's watching or seeing some notes on it and they're not able to move the ball, then I don't necessarily think that's going to change anytime soon unless there's something in Lawrence that switches real quick. But yeah, I'll go with the Lions for now.
I would say, yeah, in defense of your kind of tipsy-turvy there, I think the way the league is now, I mean, it's literally like a gunslinger's league. So, I mean, they're like a couple of throws away from really just catching it right back up if they really wanted to. But, swing it over to you, Jay. Who do you got, Lions and Jags?
Was it 30? You say 23-3 or 30-3?
23-6.
23-6.
I mean, if they score relatively soon, I don't see why they couldn't. You know what I mean? Like it's Trevor Lawrence. He's
One
got a lot
touchdown,
of deep ball threats. I think if they can get the run game going a little bit, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, they're not running
Damn,
the ball.
Detroit
very
be
well
stingy
right now.
though. They really do.
Detroit has the ball too, and it's on the 20. They have it on Jacksonville's 22. So probably kicking another field goal right here.
I'm gonna go with Detroit.
Okay, swinging it over. We got the Titans and the Eagles at halftime. It is 21-10 for the Eagles. Jared, who do you got?
I mean, it's hard to bet against Jalen Hurts. I'm gonna have to take the Eagles. I mean, I do like
unfortunately having himself a
what
game.
Titans do, and now he has two passing touchdowns and one rushing touchdown. So
Yep, so happy for Shalimar. Anyway, swinging over to you, Nolan.
I'm going to go with the Eagles as well.
Gotcha. And for you, Jay.
Eagles.
There we go.
Eagles.
All right. Clean sweep. I think we've been clean swept for all of the games. Oh, maybe except for the Jets-Vikings game. But the next one, we got the return of Deshaun Watson with the Browns taking on his former team in the Houston Texans. The score is actually pretty low, unfortunately, for Nick Chubb fans and Nick Chubb owners in fantasy. The score is 7-5 for the Browns in the third quarter. Jared, who do you get?
I take the Texans because I didn't play Amari Cooper. So, and on top of that, we're not supporting that man in Cleveland. So I'm gonna have to take Texans.
That's true. Just hand the ball off to Nick Chubb, please. Swing it over to you, Nolan.
You know what? I think that fate will right itself today, and Deshaun's first game back will be a loss, and the Texans will come back and take this win.
Great point. I mean, yeah, it's only 2 points, so I guess
So,
this is pretty close.
It was literally 5-0 right before halftime. They
People are
scored.
going to laugh in his face. So
Would love it. Would be very poetic.
give the ball to Pierce. That's all you got to do, Texans.
And Chubb. Let's just do a run battle between the two running backs. Just back and forth
Just
the
Pierce.
whole game.
Just Pierce.
Mostly Chubb, though.
But mostly
they scored on a
Pierce.
punt
And then we'll
return.
just end it with Chubb, 5 touchdowns. Thank you, Jay. Over to you.
Thank you, Jay.
Browns,
Absolutely
Texans.
not.
What do you get?
Texans. It's not even a question.
My man.
if there is any sports god's karma that can be ensued upon this man, I'm hoping.
And they're going to give the ball to Pierce,
today.
right, Jalen?
Mostly through touchdowns thrown to Nico Collins. And
Pierce is going to run the fuck out of that ball.
After Chubb has scored his 3 touchdowns. Moving on to
Pierce
the
gets
next
5.
game.
Okay, all right, now we're even.
We got the Commanders and the Giants. It will be, it'll pale in comparison to the game that Nick Chubb is going to have with the Browns and Texans. He scored 5 touchdowns.
That's because
Jesus.
Barkley is going to have 5 touchdowns in this game.
I don't care. No, I don't got anybody for those games. We got Commanders and Giants. The score is 20-13 with the Giants ahead in the third quarter. Only 3 minutes left in the third quarter. So, Jared, who do you got?
I am gonna go with Washington.
Ooh.
There's something about that team. I don't know.
Mhm.
Every time I pick against them, I'm wrong. So I mean, like they must be doing something right over there. So I'm gonna start having to believe a little bit more.
Yep.
But I feel like Heineke's he's a young quarterback. Yeah, is he a young
Relatively.
quarterback?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Relatively-ish, and I feel like he's still got a lot to bring to the table. Although it's hard to pick against Giants, but I would take Washington. I've been wrong. I was really wrong last week, so I'm not going to go with my gut anymore.
Truth. Swing it over to you, Nolan. Who do you got? Giants and Commanders.
Well, I got them Giants.
Nolan just always goes with the guys that have his team on.
Or why wouldn't
Team
I?
average guy. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think the Giants are having a pretty solid season. Commanders, I know, are just like hovering around above 500 right now.
Just above 500.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the Giants took a nice lead, and hopefully this last quarter is it for them.
Surprisingly, the first time I think in a while that the Washington defense is not in double digits for fantasy. So,
wow.
Yeah. I'm going to swing over to you, Jay. Who do you got? Giants and Commanders.
I'm picking that gunslinger Taylor Heineke. Brother, I tell you what, when he's out there, some magical things happen for the Commanders. So, going with Taylor Heineke.
Right on. We are 2-1 for the Commanders, swinging it to the next game. Very low scoring game. Obviously, we got the news earlier. Lamar Jackson is out. The score is 6-3 with the Broncos leading in the third quarter. Yeah, exactly. Swinging it over to you, Jared. Who do you got in the Broncos Ravens?
I mean, we all know what Russell Wilson is doing up there in Denver. So even with Lamar Jackson out, I'm still taking Baltimore.
Well said. Swing it over to you, Nolan. Broncos Ravens.
Broncos country. I'm just kidding.
Oh, God.
You know what? Actually,
Broncos country. Let's ride.
let's ride. I think I might actually go with the Broncos on this one. Not going to be a pretty win, but I think the Broncos might actually hold it out if Lamar Jackson doesn't return at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll go with the Broncos.
There will be some scary days for Ravens fans if Lamar Jackson has to miss more time than
And then
just today.
Russell Wilson's going to tweet out, "Praise God, he helped me through this win today."
Jesus.
And swing it to you, Jay. Broncos and Ravens. Who do you got?
Still taking the Ravens. Sorry. Run game's too good. You can put an average
That is
Joe
true.
QB in there and just say, hey, try not to turn the ball over. We're just going to pound their faces in like we used to do, or actually like they still do right now.
Yep.
They'll be fine. Because really the only way the Broncos can win a game right now is if the other team, A, doesn't show up, or if they're on a bye week and they play it on Madden, and the other team they're playing on Madden is on rookie, well, they have buffs on all the players that they have. Yeah, I don't know if they would win against the team of the school and the deaf of the blind. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not it's not looking great out there. But,
Gotta love the
yeah.
Madden's references into the questionable references at the very end there. Gonna swing it over to you, Jared, for the first game that hasn't started yet. We got the Dolphins and the 49ers. Who do you got winning that game?
On my flight though, because I think they're playing in San Francisco. I had like a bunch of people with Dolphins and Niners gear on. They're all like jarring as they're getting on the plane. I'm like, oh my god.
Boy.
I need a big week. and I need CMC to show up, and I got Robbie Gould, so I'm gonna do the fantasy owner pick right now and take the
Yep.
Niners. But yeah, I'm gonna have to take the Niners, and they're playing at home too. So I mean,
Well said. Swing it over to you, Nolan. Who do you got for Dolphins and Niners?
I'm gonna stick with the Dolphins. Just because out of spite of the 49ers.
Over to you, Jay.
California rule.
Dolphins and Niners. Who do you got?
I'm gonna go with my boy Tua. Again, if Jimmy Garoppolo exists, there's never a reality where I'm going to pick the 49ers to win a game. You know what I mean? That's just not a thing. So yeah, go Dolphins.
All right,
Wait,
Dolphins
quick
2-1.
Quick twist.
Huh?
If Jimmy doesn't throw the ball and they just play the run game, do you think the Niners have a better chance?
Not much, but yeah. Actually,
I think
you know
that's
what? Yes,
there was
indefinitely. If Christian McCaffrey lined up at quarterback, they actually would have a substantially better chance to win a football game. I'll say that right now.
Imagine
If Christian
I
McCaffrey
was
was
just reading
what?
the paper because
If
I'm
he
looking
lined up
at
at
the paper
quarterback.
in the morning, and they were talking about Shanahan thinking like he's going to run the ball a lot today. He's going to play a little bit more of a time-sensitive, conservative game rather than play his normal high-risk games. And like you said, it takes the ball out of Jimmy's hands. So, I mean, their two running backs there are pretty good as well. So, I mean, that's kind of why I asked the question because I read that article this morning. So,
either way, let's go Jalen Waddle. Let's go the fault team.
hey, calm down over there. Come on, Shalimar. Jalen Hurts.
Over to the next game. We got the Seahawks and the Rams. Jared, who do you got for that game?
Okay, I'll take you the Rams and the defense because I'm playing against Gino and I need that
There we
fool to
go.
do nothing,
There
man. But because
Yeah, he started for the other team. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But honestly, though, I'm gonna take Seattle. I think Seattle's been playing
Roger.
really good ball. Gino's been doing a great job out there. Pete Carroll, can't go wrong.
So getting over to you, Nolan. Who do you got? Seahawks and Rams.
Come on, LA.
Rams being led by that guy whose name I forgot again. What is the name of the quarterback this time?
That guy.
Who's playing for them?
I feel like it was like Brett something. No?
Doesn't
Am I
matter.
wrong?
Seahawks are going to win. Geno Smith is going to take him through.
Well said.
All right.
That's a very
LA
hurt
Rams
take
just looking
right there.
forward to the next year, okay?
That sounds. There's a lot of hurt and pain in that take right there.
Stafford
you,
put
Nolan?
through a lot
Who
on
hurt
his
you,
body
Nolan?
this year. We're just going to give him some rest, a little extra time.
Hey, he
Okay.
got his ring. He got
Cooper
his ring.
Cup, you going to come back next season?
Has ring.
He got his ring and he got his respect. I think for a long time, Matt Stafford was one of the most underrated quarterbacks. A lot of people wrote him off because the Detroit Lions were horrible, and he got his ring, did the thing, got his respect, and I'm happy for him. Even if this ends up being him riding into the sunset. But Jay, over to you. Seahawks and Rams. Who do you got?
I'm taking the Seahawks, brother. Yeah, as the meme I put in the group chat illustrates to you earlier, Pete Carroll is just having himself a time. Yes.
Oh, Adam Sandler.
Yeah. Some good stuff. So yeah, go Seahawks.
The clean sweep for the Seahawks. Swinging it over. We got the Chargers and the Raiders. It is a battle of former California, but one moved to a different part of California teams. Going over to you, Jared. We got the Chargers, Raiders. Who do you got?
England, because I don't even know which of these two teams to pick from, man. But if we're talking about the Las Vegas Raiders, I'm pretty sure I gotta support the Chargers in this aspect. I don't know why, but maybe
don't know
Justin Herbert
why.
will do something this week.
Yep, because I need my triumvirate of players to just go off this week.
I'll let
Swing it over to you,
Jalen
Nolan.
get to the Derek Carr why he's probably picking the Chargers. So I'll leave it open ended for him.
Over to you, Nolan, as a Darren Waller fan. Who do you got between the Chargers and the Raiders?
I have the Chargers. But number one, your dad has Josh Jacobs, and I'm hoping to God that his calf strain is a little bit of a hamper on him, and he doesn't do well. But Josh Jacobs is him this season.
It is.
Number
He
two,
is.
fuck Derek Carr. He couldn't hit water if he was standing in a boat. I'm just saying, man. I'm glad he's so emotional, but he's a crybaby. Okay.
Hey,
We're gonna go
Devontae
Chuck.
Adams been having himself a season though.
Because that's all he throws to, and he knows
That's
DeAndre
literally-
Adams is a good enough hands to just get it wherever it's
Literally all he
thrown.
throws to. A little bit of that Kirk Cousins thing where he just kind of throws it up in hopes that he gets it.
Who's
so.
more mid, Kirk or Carr?
Oh,
Jesus.
Oh,
that is
Legendary.
a conversation.
that's a conversation for another day. Oh, also, I wanted to say, I forgot to mention it during the Vikings-Jets kind of predictions. One of the greatest things I saw on the TV when I was in the living room, there was this 10-year-old boy, shirtless, with just chains on his body in the stands,
the
with
Kirk
chains
Cousins
on. I was like, yes. There's a little white boy. I was like, yes. Holding it down for suburban areas everywhere.
That is 100% going to be a Halloween costume next year. Swinging over to you, Jerry. Who do you got? We got the Chargers and the Raiders. The battle of the
God.
bad.
Jesus. I think I have to pick the Chargers. I'd rather it be a tie and have neither of them win.
Hey, imagine second time.
I hate both these teams passionately. That's true, Jared.
If you call this tie, you got to go buy a lotto ticket.
Right, yeah. I'd rather it be a tie, but I guess I'll pick the Chargers because their team is somewhat more put together than the Raiders. Both these quarterbacks are a joke of the position. Yeah, I just what a terrible game to have to pick.
You're going with Phillip Rivers 2.0, as you put it before in the pod.
I think Phillip Rivers has beaten Derek Carr at some point. So yeah, I think Phillip Rivers 2.0 can probably do it as well. So we'll go with that.
Well said. Great logic. Swinging it over to the next game, we got the Chiefs and the Bengals. This one should be a bit of a banger. So we're going to swing it over to you, Jared. Who do you got in this game?
Oh. I mean, I'm gonna go with the Chiefs because I didn't start Joe Burrow. So
Yeah, I'm like looking. I was like, you got no stake in this one.
Yeah, I had no stake in it. The Chiefs, actually, though, I mean, like Jalen had pointed out, because I know that's his team. He's going to hype them up, but they are the best offensive team, and Patty Mahomes seems to get it done. And I know for you guys, it's always like every week it's Kelsey's probably going to score 3 touchdowns. Let's be real about it. Favorite target. I mean, their connection is unmatched right now, I think, across the NFL. So, I mean,
who has Kelsey?
A connection. I have no idea.
Oh, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up, please. Don't
Let's go, Kelsey.
We're going to 5. So.
For the love of God.
But yeah.
How's the Bengals tight end defense?
My dad needs to break the curse since Nolan keeps beating the McKeeks in fantasy.
Knock on wood.
So get it over to you, Nolan. We got Bengals and Chiefs. Who do you got?
I'm going to go
Go ahead. Jalen's right after you. Go ahead.
Just pick the Bengals. You want to pick the Bengals.
I don't think the Bengals are going to win, but I don't want Kelsey to do well.
He doesn't want Kelsey to score 5 touchdowns.
I'll go Chiefs. I'll go Chiefs.
Oh,
but not because of Kelsey. Yeah, it's going to be, Juju's
Anybody but Kelsey.
Pacheco's going to go off, and everything is going to be great.
Honestly, that's probably how the game's going to go.
Swinging it over to you, Jay.
Obviously.
Do you ever go against?
Why would I ever?
Do you ever go against?
I was like, do you ever go against? I was like, no, exactly.
If there were a losing team,
I will say this: this is going to be a AFC Championship game, even though it is not labeled as such. This will not be a blowout on either side of the ball. This is going to be very much a down to the wire, nitty gritty game. Chiefs are pissed from AFC Championship. I believe Jamar Chase is back at this. No, he's not.
They say maybe. I don't remember if they activated him. I know Mixon is still out, I think.
I gotcha.
But Jamar Chase, I think they were saying because he was very questionable since it was like a hip hairline fracture.
Yeah. I thought they were trying to get him back for this game or something. But yeah, even without Jamar Chase, I mean, Bengals are still a solid team. They're in a lot of top categories statistically, points, point differential, defense, special, like all the good stuff. So, it's going to be a hell of a game, but yeah, Chiefs are ride or die, baby. Push come to shove, Pat Mahomes has also kind of been that guy this year. So
hell yeah, he has. an MVP candidate this year as well. So we're swinging it over. We got the Colts and the Cowboys. Jared, who do you got for that game?
Man, I'm gonna go with Dallas.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
I'm gonna
are.
go with Dallas.
Yes,
And
you are.
Dak Prescott is not gonna do anything because they're gonna
Dak is
run the
going to
ball
throw
the whole
it
time.
over and over to Schultz and get him 3 touchdowns today, and the
Dak
defense
isn't
is
gonna
going
do
to
anything.
stop the Colts.
No, yeah, I'm gonna just go. I'm like short and sweet. I'm gonna take the Cowboys.
Well said. Swinging it over to you, Nolan. Who do you got? Cowboys and Colts.
I got them boys. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cowboys. I got 3 positions right now that I need the Cowboys to perform at. Can't let anything drop behind me. I need it. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Swinging it over to you, Jay. Colts and Cowboys. Who do you got?
You know, had Jeff Saturday not proved me right with his incompetence during the Steelers game, I might have given the Colts a shot at maybe ruffling some feathers with Dallas. But after seeing that you lost a game where you had 3 timeouts in 2 minutes and 54 seconds, down by 1 score, to win a game, yeah, there's no shot. Cowboys are going to win by a lot. If anything, even if it comes down to a Mike McCarthy coaching decision, which might be as equally terrible, given the events of last year's playoffs. I still got to pick the Cowboys. I think they're just a way more loaded team. So, yeah.
Yep, well said. Swinging it, we got the final game. This one will be on Monday Night Football. We got the Saints and the Buccaneers. Jared, who do you got for that game?
Do you take my fantasy running back, or do you take the newly acquired Tom Brady since he's single again?
Divorce
he
buff.
got that buff,
acquired,
right?
yeah.
Divorce buff.
He got the buff.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's, and they both got such horrible records that it's a 50-50 toss up here.
That they do.
I mean, it's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. He got the buff. I'm just gonna use that as my reasoning for this one.
Right on. And for you, Nolan, who do you got? Saints and Buccaneers?
Probably gonna go with the Bucks and Brady's new deadbeat dad black badge that he's acquired. You know how it is.
No
Freedom,
sympathy for that man.
all
None.
buffs.
Sorry.
And he's gonna give it to Mike Evans. That's how it's gonna go. There you go.
And there it is. And finally, with you, Jay, final game of the week. We got Saints and Bucks. Who do you got winning that one?
I'm actually going with the Saints. Historically, if we look at this matchup, for some reason, the Saints get into Tom Brady's brain space horribly. He has had some of his absolute worst games playing against the Saints, and for no reason. There's been years where the Saints were god awful, had no business being even close, but for some reason they get after Tom Brady, man. So I'm gonna go with the Saints.
Well spoken. And that will round off our conversation for the NFL. And I think that's a great way to kind of segue us into the NBA conversation a little bit. We did sort of have a discussion about something that'll lead. I mean, it's partial. In my head, it kind of matches a little bit of what I was going to bring up today. And this will be kind of a mini series that we're going to start here with some of these conversations. Essentially, I asked everybody here to kind of come with some hot takes. This one today, we're just going to focus on one. And it'll be, I'm just really hoping that this ends up being something that there are some disagreements at least over. But it is something that I've been thinking about, something that I thought about as we kind of looked at this, the grand overall, just where the league is at right now. We just recently had a discussion about Steph Curry, talking about where he ranks as far as this era is concerned, whether or not this era is a 1A, 1B conversation between himself and LeBron James. And I will preface this conversation by saying that though I did agree with Nolan saying that Steph Curry is the 1A to the 1B of LeBron James for the era discussion, there is no doubt in my mind who is the best player of this generation.
Kevin Durant.
It is. Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It is LeBron James. There's no doubting the fact that LeBron James is the greatest player of this generation of players. I don't think no matter how successful Steph Curry ends up being at the end of his tenure and the end of LeBron's career, it won't matter. LeBron James is that guy. He is the number one. When you look at his success, his ability to kind of change the entirety of the game, I mean, to be so well-rounded, to be so athletic, there's just no doubt that he is number one when it comes to this generation of players. Where he ranks all time for us, that'll be a discussion up for another time. But while I want to give him all the due respect for what he has done for the league, there is something that I do feel, and this is kind of leading into where my hot take goes, that he has done for the game, and this is something I'm going to just give my own kind of name to the era, and it's going to be the stat chasing era. Because since he's come into the league, so many people have praised the fact that he is so well-rounded. And while I don't believe that LeBron James is the person who is stat chasing, because I do think that what he has done and how he has contributed to his teams through the amount of statistics that he puts up, whether it be points, rebounds, all that kind of stuff, has impacted his team positively and has made those teams way better than they should have been. I do think that what he has done is essentially introduced this younger generation of players to the stat chasing era. And some may argue for and some may argue against, but my big take is that this younger up and coming generation will be wildly overrated when their careers are over. And when I'm talking about this younger generation, I will say probably players who were drafted within the last decade or so, guys who grew up watching LeBron James as kids. And that's the generation we're in now, because a lot of these guys will be like, I wasn't even born when Jordan was playing. So that's my hot take. I do think that they're just going to be wildly overrated at the end of their careers because of the amount of statistics that they put up on paper and what it looks like as far as how they contribute to the game because of their points, their rebounds, their totals at the end of their careers. I'm looking at guys like Ja Morant, Darius Garland, not really necessarily Luka, because I do feel like Luka is a generational talent, but so many players that are up and coming. Trae Young is another one that I don't think that they positively impact their teams. I think that they will be overrated at the end of their careers because of how much numbers they put on the board as opposed to how they actually affect the way that their team is able to play and the way that their teams are able to win games. But I'm going to throw it over to you, Nolan. I mean, you in agreement, you in disagreement. That's personally, I just think that there's so many guys here. And I'm going to say, to add on to that take, I don't think that we're seeing any players that will end up being generational talents as far as where they finish all time. I don't think we're seeing any players that will end up being even top 10, top 15, top 20 as far as positionally all time for their positions.
So I'll say I know you kind of said it in passing. In regards to players that were drafted within this last decade, I do think Luka and Giannis are both generational talents.
Yes.
I don't think their stats are bloated. I think that every stat that they earn is for the benefit of their team that's on the court. Because you look at, we've mentioned it before, you look at Luka's supporting cast right now. If he wasn't on that floor, it would be a much harder road for the Mavs. Giannis, kind of the same thing. Thankfully, he has
be in the playoff picture, man.
Sorry, what?
Harder road,
be in the playoff
No,
picture.
yeah.
It's like hard.
I mean,
Yeah.
And I think the
hard
Bucks, thankfully they have Middleton and Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday.
All three of those guys feed together when they're on the court, so it's not like they're padding. They're really just crushing it for the East on their Milwaukee team. But yeah, I would say for the most part there are a lot of guys who people consider stars now. Devin Booker, Trae Young.
There are the big name right there.
Yeah, there's
Devin
a lot
Booker.
of them that you kind of just look at them and you're like, yeah, you're getting the numbers, you're showing out, you're a great fantasy player, but in the big scheme of things, you're not really going to be a top 15 player for your position. But the thing is, my question is, because of how much the game has changed, their stats are predicated into how the game is now. So you look at it back then, we have these hard two-way players who don't give up on any plays. They play their high minutes, but it's for the benefit of their plus minus, not so much their stats. And they're working hard and helping their team in any way they can, whether it's a high scoring night, high rebounding night, high assist night. They're doing what they can to make their team flow. In today's game, it's who scores the highest, the fastest. And a lot of the players today are looking at that as, let's just run and gun. Let's go quick. Let's do this. So their names show up a lot more on the highlights or top 10 for ESPN, as opposed to, the dirty down players like Royce O'Neal. He doesn't get enough credit on the Brooklyn Nets right now, but
love him as a player.
He's an absolute animal on both sides of the court. And
Jay Crowder, another one.
Who's that?
Jay Crowder, another one.
Yes, Jay Crowder, who I hope finds a team soon. But yeah,
he's still with the Suns, though, right? Currently?
It was like a mutual agreement that he wasn't going to play this season until.
Gotcha. So he's just sitting out. Gotcha.
Kind of like John Wall, I guess you could say.
I will. So I'm gonna kind of interject here a little bit because I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So sorry, what were we just talking about? I just completely forgot that train of thought. What were you just talking about? Sorry.
That the game today is different, and that the stats are kind of predicated or an indication of how the game is being played.
Yeah, I forgot. Continue your thought. I completely forgot what I was going to say to you.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that I'm not going to be an ass and say that the players today that's the thought in their head. Like, go ahead.
Sorry, just remembered. Kit, I was going to interject. I was like, do you think that we are swinging? So, because this is my kind of where I'm going with it. Do you think that we're swinging a little bit too far left as far as away from the game of basketball and to a point where this is purely becoming an entertainment-based sport? Because in my head, it's almost like we're getting to a point where they will end up doing things like introducing a 4-point line, which has been discussed in the last 5 to 10 years and is still on the board, according to Adam Silver, as far as something that they are looking to incorporate into the game. And for me, I mean, you guys technically, I don't know, maybe Jared too, Jay, I know has also played, Nolan, you as well. You guys are more like former actual basketball players and kind of from a basketball purist standpoint. Are we swinging too far to that side where now guys are just putting up these ridiculous numbers in order to make the game entertaining as opposed to just playing the sport to win and kind of creating this culture of just let's be trending as opposed to let's play the game of basketball? I
would say yes, but I think that's not only due to the era of the game that we're playing, but also just the era of
social media,
life.
And all that.
Yeah, like who are you? I can assume, like I was mentioning before you kind of added your thought. I don't think players step on the court thinking like, oh, I got to drop 30 tonight, and so I can get my stats going this way. I need to make sure that I'm still averaging this much. It just so happens that they're looking to see that they can be that name rather than filling their stat sheets. And by that, you kind of go into social media, like we mentioned. People want to be known. It is an entertainment base because of that. You see these players who they're getting all their own nicknames. They're getting their posts shared around the internet because they're able to put up these deep logo shots, or they get this highlight dunk, but they're averaging like 5 and 5. But it's because they feel a different type of way about it. Whereas, back in the LeBron Kobe era, or early LeBron era, because now obviously LeBron is in that kind of social media stage, what you got was a winning record. You got to represent for your town. You didn't get so many posts going around. Sure, you could have someone look up your highlight reel on YouTube, but it wasn't up to you to say, hey, go look up my mix on YouTube. It was just a matter of word of mouth. And so these players now, because they have so many like facets to kind of dip off to, it doesn't matter. So I do think it's changed, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily because the players are them. It's because it's how they were being brought up into the process of being professional basketball players. And, I'm not saying there's anything bad with it, but overall, they won't be top 10 players in their position because it's just that they're evolving with the game that's being played now, as opposed to just being that guy like Luka or Giannis currently is.
Just like, so you're kind of in agreement with me.
Kind
then,
of in
like,
agreement. But
I was like,
it is-
at the tail end there. So
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay.
so, yes, okay.
It's like, like, so full
Got
circle.
it.
You are okay. Gotcha. I'm going to swing this over to you, Jay. Actually, I'm going to give Jared the kind of final take for this one. Your thoughts. Obviously, I know that you did play basketball in high school as well. Thoughts on the whole take, and whether or not this is kind of a good or bad thing for the NBA.
I find myself
The glasses are
disagreeing
off,
more.
folks. The
No, it's because
glasses
my
are off.
fucking head's gonna explode. I keep it on too long. No, I think I feel like I disagree with more than anything else, because like while we are in a social media age, I think when you come down to it, like we are able as sports people to kind of look past certain statistics and understand the context of it. So I feel like when we get into these debates with this generation of players, we're going to be able to sift through the guys that were, BSing it and stat chasing versus the guys like Giannis and Luka and all that are actual generational talent, where you look at their stats and you're like, oh, like that actually mattered that they were dropping 40, 10, and 10. You know what I'm saying? Versus a guy that statistically is like, well, this guy's stats are better than that guy and blah, blah, blah. That I feel like those conversations are going to get sifted through really easily. So while, yes, it is a little annoying to kind of be in this very much social media age of the game being more about like the popcorn plays, as I call them, than actual basketball anymore. I don't think that they're going to be overrated. I feel like it's just going to take there's going to be more debates on what the actual stats meant, and things of that nature. Because people do it right now with LeBron and Michael, because statistically, like LeBron, of course, has exceeded Michael in every category, but yet there's still plenty of people that will say, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. At the end of the day, I think stats they help get you at a starting point for an argument about this player or that player. But at the end of the day, it's once you contextualize what they actually mean, that you actually get these opinions of who's actually better, who's not better, that kind of thing. So, I don't think they'll be overrated. I think they're just going to be more players that are going to show up statistically listed higher, that more people will be like, that's not real.
I agree with what Jalen's saying, but I feel like the hard part is, like us four here, we're part of like the 5 to 10% of people who would look past the stats. You go to anyone on the street and they're like, fuck, Trae Young's the best player in the league. Oh, hell yeah.
John Morant is the best point guard coming up. Yeah, exactly.
Desmond Bain is obviously going to be a Hall of Famer now, but
I think this is what I'm more pointing towards.
Yeah, it's hard for
people will obviously. I mean, there's obviously the generational thing. Like, you're always going to think the players from your generation are the best generation of players, or whatever, whatnot. But it's also part of the conversation is a guy like John Morant at the end of his career, because of how statistically he's doing now. If you look at, he may end up on, as far as where he's headed, statistically, he may end up being up there. But is his style of play, is the way that he's kind of carrying his team through the statistic portion of it, is that going to make him a top 5 player at the end of his career because his numbers are up there? Or is it going to be based on something, purely in the basketball success gamut?
I'm going to even say this is a hot take in regards to John Morant. And we can equate this to any of the top decade players. Although I don't think he is going to be a Hall of Famer, I would appreciate Josh Giddey's career more than John Morant's if Josh Giddey won a ring. Because I feel like John Morant may have all the stats, but if you look at Josh Giddey's play on the court with the OKC, even though they are a tanking team, his play is more beneficial for the OKC Thunder than John Morant's is for the Grizzlies.
Boy is a hustler.
Yeah.
That is for sure. And actually, I'm going to kind of give Jared a little bit of, obviously, huge LeBron James fan, and like I said from the beginning, it has nothing to do with LeBron James, because we know for a fact that what LeBron James does on the court affects his team in a positive way. It is the generation that sort of followed him afterward. And then I'm going to kind of also ask you a follow-up question, but first, I'm going to get your thoughts on your initial take.
kind of in agreement with Jay here. No matter where you take it, stats is always going to be a factor to the naked eye of people. Like you said, like Jay put it, you walk across the street and they're wearing a Trae Young. Why are you wearing a Trae Young jersey? Oh, because he's the best player in the league. He's the best shooter. Da, 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 da. He scores and he's flashy about it. It's a generational thing. But when I look at it, being the elder, I guess you say out of everybody, I've been through many eras of play. I guess we could say. It's really changed the way the game is played. I mean, we talked about like the bad boy Pistons all the way to the Michael Jordan era, to the early LeBron, to the Kobe era, like all the different eras. There's all different styles of play. Like Kobe's style of play is like somewhere in between of where it is now because that's when the shooting kind of started to happen. 3-pointers started to open up. Big men started scoring more at range,
Away
like
from
the
the
Paul
basket,
Gasols
yeah.
and everything. You know, and I think that's why it's so hard to like categorize this in a sense. And when we first started talking, and after listening to everybody's points, I was kind of in agreement with you. But I think in the long run, when you look at it, people's play styles, statistic, no matter what, people are going to remember who they are and what they were for their team at the end of the day. For me, especially with like a Luka Doncic or a Giannis, like that's the face of the franchise for them. Luka's literally the face now that Dirk's gone. The Bucks haven't been good in forever, and that's why you got Giannis there. I mean, like the generational talents are always going to be generational talents. But at the end of the day, when you look at players like you guys are talking about Josh Giddey and John Morant, I mean, yeah, Josh's great. He puts up the highlights that you want him to put up. He's for lack of a better way of putting it, his Russell Westbrook 2.0. Because I think he does better things than he does, but they're kind of the same player, the way they score, the way they play the game, how fast they want to play, how they attack the basket. And players like that kind of get weeded out quickly, I guess you would say. Because, I mean, they're still, like you said, we're looking at players in the first decade of their team. And in the first decade, their new face, their new name, like, oh, are they living up to the hype? And for them, I think I want to live up to the hype. So we are in that kind of stat pad, that social media stage of, I mean, let's be real about it in a generational thing. If there was social media during Michael Jordan's era, basketball would have blew off the planet because of how
I mean,
good
it
that
basically
man was.
did. I was like,
But I mean, like,
And that's
you
without
never
the
had
internet,
camera
though.
phones.
Yeah,
You never had
exactly.
camera phones. You
Imagine.
didn't have things
Crazy.
that, you have Instagram, you have Facebook. You didn't have none of that. And to watch that and be like, oh, I'm on Facebook Live or I'm on Instagram Live and you guys want to watch the game with me?
It's so
Cool.
it
We're
would be
gonna,
so weird to
you
think
know what I mean?
of
It would have
any of
been
those guys
so,
being like
it's
that.
so
Like,
different.
hey guys,
And I
it's
mean,
Mike. What's up?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
What's up,
I
Mike?
really, yeah, with a cigar.
But
But I
I was
think it makes you appreciate players like
No,
that
no, no.
even
In that
more
world,
because they
Mike is
did
a
it in
vegan
the,
and doesn't smoke because smoking is bad.
But I would say even like we kind of jumping off the Michael comparison, Draymond Green just passed Michael Jordan 3-pointers made in their career. Draymond Green. So I think it's still like a big difference because you look at all the players from the 90s.
I actually got a kind of a follow up question because I'm just curious for Jared and Jay. I mean, technically, I'll swing it to you also, Nolan, but I'm curious, where do you guys see, because actually, I'm not even going to say that part. Where do you guys place players like Russell Westbrook and James Harden all time? Are they in your top 10 players all time for their positions?
No.
Top players all time for their position.
Yes.
No.
so Westbrook is nowhere close. I think I got Harden higher than Westbrook for sure.
The only reason
But
I
I don't
asked this
have
question
Russell
is
Westbrook anywhere
because
close.
if you look at a lot of ESPN, whether it be
The
ESPN,
lists.
Sports Illustrated rankings, they have them. James Harden, I think, is for a lot of rankings at number 4 all time because of what he's done on the court. And also Russell Westbrook is within the top 10, not in the top 5, but James Harden is in a lot of top 5s for a lot of analysts who go through these numbers, place a lot of emphasis on the statistics that these guys put up. Because if you look at the overall careers of a Russell Westbrook and a James Harden, you see how many threes James Harden chucks up. Offensively, he gets in his bag. He throws up the statistics to pad his career. And then you got a guy like Russell Westbrook as well. leads the entire history of the NBA in triple doubles. And because of that, he's placed as a top 10 point guard of all time. And I look at players like that who I just don't think have that great of careers or should be placed that high. But because they are able to produce the numbers, they look like they are better than they actually are. And we've all not placed any of those guys in our top fives, as you know, can be evidenced by our previous podcast. But I'm just curious, do you guys place them up there, and why not, if not?
Well, I think, aren't we kind of going off recency bias, though? Because you got to think, like, we talked about, stats being meaningful for their teams, right? Like, there's a time where Russ getting triple doubles every game was meaningful for OKC with Kevin Durant, right? Like, they were showing up to these semifinals of the Western Conference. Like, they were running through the West, at least their division, like that kind of stuff. And same thing with James Harden. So it's kind of weird to sit here and say, like, oh, we're going to look at the value of a statistic as compared to, like, what it does for their team. But in recent times, now those stats don't really matter because they're playing like, garbage. So it's kind of weird. Like, if we're going to, I think that's another maybe conversation, but at least from where I'm sitting, if we're going to judge the player and their career and rank them, we have to look at their best efforts, which would be, obviously, it's Russ and OKC, and it's James Harden with the Houston Rockets. Like, that's where a lot of those stats and all that came from, right? So, like, I think the stats hold up, and I think they were meaningful for their teams. I personally just don't think that they're top 5 all time, but I think there are plenty valid arguments to put them if that's where somebody is going to rank James Harden based on his stats. Like, yeah, okay, I can roll with that. It's just me personally. I think, eras do play a big difference, like we've talked about 800 times on the show.
And I think of all of the lists, you probably had the most players from like the 70s and 80s in most of your top fives, for sure.
I really did.
Yeah, it's like eras definitely makes a big difference. But over to you, Jared. I mean, why do you not place any of those guys up there?
I'm in 100% agreement with Jalen there. Personally, as a fan, as somebody who follows and has played the sport, I don't think it's looked at in the same way. Stats wise, yes, and I love how you pointed out. If I had to pick errors or teams in points of where people are pulling their stats from, yes, it's most meaningful in that aspect. But for me, it's just like being the error person and like seeing the different eras of play. I just learned to appreciate the game in a different aspect. Triple doubles weren't really a huge thing. And double doubles were more of a big thing back in the day. And it's like a triple double was very rare. And if it did happen, it was just kind of like you had 25, 12, and 10. Like literally your last one was 10. And it just happened by whatever. But I think honestly, when you look at it at the end of the day, I don't have them in the top 5, I think, because of personal preference or whatever it is. But statistically, I can see why James Harden is in the top 5. In the times that he was with the Houston Rockets, he was that guy. And his stats needed to be that guy to be that guy. And I know we're talking about being that guy during that eras and during what you're doing. That's where the stats are most meaningful. I think it was like that. Like in a Trae Young sort of sense, like especially now with Trae throwing up big numbers, he has DeJounte Murray. He doesn't need these numbers. He has John Collins. He has players like that. And you guys brought John Morant, and this is where I was going to go with the last one. John Morant's team had a great record with John Morant not on the court. So it's not the fact that John Morant needed to score all those points and get all those highlights and be the face of it, because Memphis was just as good with him being injured for all those.
But does that not kind
playoff run
help the idea that he sort of pads stats when his team is still successful, even
that's
without
why
him on
for
the
me
court?
he becomes a little bit more irrelevant in a sense of anything, like, you know what I mean, in the long run of things. But so it really comes down to, honestly, these kind of arguments comes down to personal preference and who the person is and what they're looking at. Like, what if I asked you to analyze soccer, you're not going to analyze soccer the same way I analyze soccer. And if
I'm not going to analyze soccer at all.
Yeah, but we're very big basketball enthusiasts, and so the way we follow the game, the way we perceive the game is different from somebody who's just like, oh, I love the game from an entertainment standpoint. I like going to games. I like watching NBA League Pass, So I think it really differs the view, and from the writer's perspective of how they create the list. I don't think a lot of them watch as much as they look at like, well, these stats are helping me give my argument, and rather than like, why are these stats? You know what I mean? Like, you don't look into the deeper meaning of it. So it really is more based personally than I think it is generalized. Like, there's no syllabus that says we're going to look at this, and this counts for this much percentage, and this counts for this much percentage, and this is why this player needs to be in the top 5. There's nothing like that. There's no guideline. So I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the hardest part for any list in general.
Raja.
Yeah.
And Nolan, I'm going to let you kind of end this conversation since I know you have something to say.
I don't think specifically they should be anywhere near a top 5 list. I could see them dipping into the bottom of like the top 10 for their positions. But it's for like different reasons. You know, James Harden obviously is a prolific player for this era. But I feel like his numbers are more bloated than you would think a player from this era is. Like Trae Young, he chucks up a ton of shots, gets some boards here and there, dishes out a lot of assists to his players. I feel like Harden kind of had partially the LeBron effect, where everyone would hone in on him when he had the ball in his hands, and so that he was able to dip off the ball to someone else available. At the same time, during his high years, Harden was averaging like 17 points off of free throws, just because he was. And I don't like that play style, which is why I actually would rank Westbrook higher in a top 10 for his point guards than I would rank Harden in a top 10 for shooting guards. And mainly that's just because of his Harden's play style was very kind of elevated in the eyes of people. But you ask a lot of people like who do pay attention to basketball, like, yeah, dude, but he's drawing fouls by like every time he drives to the basket, trying to get some sort of call. Westbrook, you know, he, by all intents and purposes, is not the smartest player, but he is a hard worker. And yes, he does have the elevated and bloated triple-double stats, but I feel like that ultimately came into his mind when KD left, and he felt like he had to prove something to himself as well as to the people saying, oh, you're the reason why Kevin Durant left. You're the reason like this team is failing. And it was more of him trying to prove something to himself as well as all the people watching him. Like, hey, no, I'm a hard ass worker and I can earn everything that I have on the court. But yeah, I mean, push comes to shove. There are some things about both those guys that don't deem them top 5 players. But you know, if people do have them top 10 eventually, I don't see any huge issue. But I wouldn't say that they're knocking at the top 5 door.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I think that is unless somebody else has something to add to the conversation. Jay, Jared, no? All right. I think that'll do it for this discussion.
Go Lakers.
That'll do it for this discussion because I don't even want to get into the Bulls' goodness. Yeah, let's just not talk about that right now.
But we're gonna
record.
Yeah.
Actually, we technically have a better win percentage because we have one less loss. Just had to rub it in. Sorry.
That is just so sad. We have one less loss. Like both teams are sub 500 right now. Anyway, we're gonna move past that. This is the end of Athletes Anonymous. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for being here during the holiday season, and obviously as we're heading into the holiday season, we hope that you guys are all staying safe. I'm going to swing it over to you, Jared. Where can the people find you?
On Instagram and Twitch at JShirai, JSHIRAI, and on Twitter at JShirai808.
Well said. Over to you, Nolan. Where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at NolanKYT, NOLANKYT.
And Jalen, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitch at Art by Jalen, and you can find me on Twitter at Jalen Holston. And sometimes you can find me on a podcast where we talk about not sports at all, just video games and nerdy stuff at A Little Bit of Nerd. So,
well said. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at KONE. That's KAYOHKNEE. And also, you can check us out on Instagram, which we will be posting more to, at the Poi and Soy Podcast. I thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Athletes Anonymous. As always, it has been a pleasure. It has been a joy from all of us here at Poi and Soy.
Good vibes and love, everybody.
Bang, bang.
Shoots.
Let's ride.
Then your average. Then your average. Then your average.